Welcome to the April 18th meeting of Soquel Creek Water District. Roll call shows all directors are here. And the first item on today's agenda is a public hearing on a variance request from Twin Lakes Church.
Yes. So good evening. The variance request from Twin Lakes Church is shown as attachment 1 to the memo. And we're going to start with their site map, which is attachment 3. So, oops, right here. Oops, 15. 5. Okay. Twin Lakes Church is planning phase 2 of their master plan implementation, which includes adding 2 buildings to their campus at 2701 Cabrillo College Drive in Aptos. The first building is a 7,700 square foot chapel, and the second building is a 5,300 square foot college outreach building with 2 separate areas or use types, both about the same size, so 2650 square feet. The first area is a coffee house, and the second is proposed for a ministry educational area. Twin Lakes Church is requesting a variance from using the district's standard methodology for calculating water demand offset requirements for the chapel and the ministry and educational area of the outreach building. As with all new development projects, this project is subject to our water demand offset program, which requires that they offset their projected water use by a factor of 2. Specifically, they're asking to use custom projected water use factors based on site-specific metering data and sub-metering data that they maintain for these areas, as opposed to our established projected water use factors. The district's factors, which have been developed for most common commercial use types, are based on statistical averages of water used in acre feet per 1,000 square foot of floor area for various commercial development types. And before I move on to that, I just want to show this is the proposed chapel here, and this is the proposed college education outreach building. They did add an education building in 2014, which is shown down, right there. So going to our standard schedule of factors, which is right here. These are the factors that the district uses for various development types to estimate their water use. And so our calculations that staff did when we met with them and got an idea of what they were proposing came from this schedule for the most part. So for the chapel, we used this church factor of 0.092 acre feet per 1,000 square feet. And for the coffee shop portion of the project of the college outreach building, we use this restaurant factor here. This is the lowest water using restaurant category for takeout type restaurants with minimal on-site prep. That's typically what we would use for a coffee shop. So we use those in our calculations. And for the ministry education area of the college outreach building, we calculated the offset requirement based on a custom site-specific water use factor of 0.30 acre feet per 1,000 square feet. That was approved by the board in 2014 following a similar public hearing and variance request. So the end use of the ministry area and the previously built education building seem similar and more related than any of our other factors, so we went with that. And their 2014 approved factor was based on site-specific 2013 district metering records, as well as their internal irrigation submetering data and sewer use records that they maintain. So how do their proposed water use factors tonight and our offset requirements and factors differ from theirs? So let's take a look at Table 1 in the memo. That's a summary table that lays out, here you have the components of their project, and you have the water use factors that staff used. So for the chapel, that 0.092, the coffee house 0.233, and the college ministry area, that was the approved variance in 2014, so we went with that. When you plug those inputs into our calculation methodology, we come up with offset requirement of 2.28 acre feet per year. So now looking at Twin Lakes Church proposed water use factors, they are proposing for the chapel and the college ministry area to use 0.011 acre feet per 1,000 square feet. That custom factor that they derived is based on 2 inputs. So an average site consumption is 6.26 acre feet per year, which is the district's metering data. And that's an average of their consumption from years 2013 through 2016. I just want to note that that's lower than their 2013 consumption of 8.69 acre feet that was used in their 2014 variance request that was approved. The second data input that they use is an indoor to outdoor water use ratio. And so they are proposing a 25% indoor to 75% outdoor based on their internal submetering and sewer record data. And that differs from their 2014 request, which was a 36% indoor to 64% outdoor. They're also proposing to use the site-specific water use factor of 0.1011 for the ministry area. I think I might have already mentioned that, but as opposed to the 0.030 acre feet that was approved in 2014 by the board for the education building. They're not proposing a different factor for the coffee house. They wouldn't have that sort of specific data for their site, so they're proposing to stick with our factor. And so as shown in the table, the proposed factors significantly reduce their calculated offset requirement for the chapel. They are coming up with 0.17 acre feet, and our calculations are 1.13. The difference in the ministry area is not as significant, but there is a difference there. And so using their custom factors, their offset requirement would be reduced from 2.28 to 1.22 acre feet per year. And so that would also translate to a reduction in fees of about a little over $55,000, or a little under. Let's see, so in the memo, we've provided the findings for the board to consider in regards to granting or denying the Twin Lakes Church variance request. The findings here are the standard from our resolution 7455, and all of the findings have to be met. Granting the variance is required by special circumstances applicable to the property, and as a result of which the strict application of district resolutions and ordinances would cause the property to be deprived of privileges enjoyed by other similar properties in the district. B, granting the variance would be in harmony with the general intent or purpose of the ordinances, resolutions, and policies of the district, but would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. And lastly, the granting of the variance would not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with those placed upon other parcels. So that concludes the staff presentation of this item, and then the possible board motions are listed below. And if you have any questions of staff, I could take those.
You can go ahead and ask questions now, and then we'll ask the public.
And we do have representatives here from the Twin Lakes Church. We have Mark Spurlock and John Ifland from Ifland Engineering, who's assisting them with the engineering request, and also Valerie. That's it.
So,
Question?
couple questions.
Okay.
So, the water demand offset program, where the water use factors are applied, that initially was San Luis Obispo, and it's been modified. And so it's just, where does the .092 for chapel come from?
So water demand offset factors that we use originally came from the city of Santa Barbara. They hired a consultant to do the study and to compile a data set, statistically valid data set for these development types. And they initially came up with these numbers. Those numbers were taken by the city of San Luis Obispo when they implemented a water demand offset program some years later. And they, I think, subsequently adjusted those numbers when mostly the toilet factor, or the toilet flush rate, went from 3.5 to 1.6, so that was in the late 90s. We've made a subsequent adjustment, I believe, from 1.6 gallon per flush toilets to account for 1.28 gallon per flush toilets. So there's been some adjustments over time. They are averages, so within that data set for each development type, you're going to have sites that fall below the average and sites that fall above the average, and we see that happening quite a bit within our own group of projects that these numbers have been applied to.
Okay, and then this may or may not be a question for you. It might be more for the Twin Lakes Church people. So in the proposed water use factor, they used an average of 2013 to 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to 2013, and the number looks like it was.
It's a couple of acre feet difference.
Yeah. Right. So I guess the question I have that you might be able to answer or might not, is there a trend in the water use?
Oh, yeah.
It must be lower.
It's lower. They made a lot of improvements to their campus as part of their 2014 development project. They went through and did some on-site retrofits to gather credit for that project. And in fact, they still retain a small amount of credit that would be applied to this to reduce their offset. But they've made substantial improvements in their water efficiency by replacing fixtures. They removed some turf areas as part of that project. And just in general, I think the awareness about water use has been so high across the board that everybody's numbers are down compared to 2013.
Okay, that's the only questions I have.
Thank you. You had questions, Bruce?
I noticed from the document there's some discussion about usage. So, for example, I could imagine a chapel which gets used, several times a day, 7 days a week, would get a lot more water use than something that's used, once a month or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, how would staff deal with that issue about? Because certainly anyone could come in here and say, I'm only going to use this once a year, and so how would staff monitor that about usage figures? Because that would apply as well. Have we ever done that?
I don't think we have ever done that before, and I wouldn't think that we would want to do that because we just don't have those staffing resources that we can monitor projects. I mean, we do have people that apply for deed restrictions for single-family parcels, and we keep track of those, and also for restricted meters to make sure that they're not going over that maximum capacity. But I don't think we would want to go beyond that and be monitoring capacity or use, those sorts of factors. It just would be a lot of, I think, time for staff.
Okay, thanks.
Carla?
Yeah, I do too.
There's something to, okay.
Oh, I just wanted to, I was pretty impressed with the decrease in the water consumption on the campus since the 2014 project started. But but in general, the water district has decreased its water consumption dramatically too. So is there any plan afoot in the long term to reevaluate the entire, those numbers?
We've talked about that before, about commissioning a new study or maybe doing not all of these categories of use, but the most common that we see in our district. And we weren't certain what was going to happen with the water demand offset program last year, and so we kind of wanted to wait and see if it was going to remain in place before we spent money to redo the study. But if, you know, that's certainly something that we've thought about, and if the program's going to be around another, you know, 5 years, we probably should do that.
So, and one more. And that was, what was it? Oh, have there been any other, before I came on the board, were there any other developers or petitioners who wanted a consideration of the same nature?
So would you?
I don't believe to this level. There might have been some people that asked about it, but we always said that the program relied on the law of averages. That's what these numbers are. They went out, if you look at the historical documents, they surveyed a bunch of sites in each category and then did the averaging. I will say, and Shelley, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm digging back into my memory of looking through the data, but I thought the church category didn't have that many samples in it, so it's just a little less robust.
Yeah, I'm not real sure. We have had to come up with some custom factors for brewery in our area that we don't have a factor for breweries, and so we did work on that. We've met with other, I guess, applicants, and those projects didn't come to fruition, but they had projects that kind of were outside the scope of these factors, and so behind the scenes staff has done some of that type of work for projects because there's just nothing that was really close for them. So
Michelle?
I was confused about how they came up with this .011 number. I don't
Okay.
see much in there. And, I mean, they've shown, one of the examples was that it was like 28% less water use from the last time. And then basing it on sewer and water use, I mean, what does the sewer have to do with this?
they keep records on their sewer discharge because that's how they're charged. And so essentially everything that's not going to the sewer system, they're assuming is being used for outdoor irrigation. And then their submetering irrigation records are used to, in parallel with the sewer records to come up with those
The
estimates.
sewer records, the sewer charges are calculated based on water use and then winter water use.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, they might be able to,
so that's,
Okay.
I mean, I've calculated it. I was in charge of
Okay.
the sewers. So, yeah, it's like
Okay.
it's going back and forth and it doesn't make
Okay, well,
sense to me.
so the first part of your question, how they came up with the .011. So they basically took this section here that staff did. This was based on the 2014 variants that used 2013 consumption data. Here they're using 2013 through 2016. So instead of a total campus use of 8.69, it's 6.26. That's an average of those 4 years. These are their proposed indoor-outdoor ratios. And so then what they do here is they take the total campus use and they multiply that by 0.25, which is the estimate of that portion of water that's used indoors. And that comes out to 1.57 acre feet per year. And then what they do is they take their existing square footage for those buildings, and which is 144,616 square feet, and they divide that by 1,000, so they get 144.62, and then they let's see here, they take the current indoor use 1.57 acre feet and divide that by the square footage to come up with water used in acre feet per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. So that's how the calculation was done, and that was just basically a repeat of how it was done in 2014 with the new numbers plugged in. Does that make sense, or?
It just seems like a great drop for small difference in usage, so.
Yeah, I mean, the justification for the indoor-outdoor, you know, it could be a little low, but we did check the calculations for accuracy, and there wasn't any errors, so that's all I can tell you, and they might be able to expand on the sewer use.
Okay.
I have one question, and then we'll open it up to the public. Just, did you, or have we, checked with any other programs that might have dealt with this besides the original factors that we got? Like is anybody else dealing with this and trying to come up with
We haven't,
updated
but
factors?
what we've found when we have done research on other offset programs is nobody has an offset program like this, or they might have, 15 years ago, but it lasted a year and it's been done forever. So there's not a lot of roadmaps for this program.
Just thought I'd ask. Okay, is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Good evening. I'm Mark Spurlock from Twin Lakes Church. I wanted to address some of the questions that came up. First of all, the essence is we're using the actual data, and the reason we prefer that, of course, is because the averages are considerably higher, and if they're the same numbers that have existed for a couple years, the vast majority of them come from churches in Southern California where the conservation efforts, we suspect, are not as robust. And so we're getting lumped in by the averages with more profligate users than our data proves out. And so it seems reasonable to say this is the exact usage that we're using per square foot, as opposed to an average number of other sites we have no control over how they're using their water. The way we get to that data is that every single building has a submeter on it as the water goes into it. So we know exactly how much water that building uses. And so and then the county accepts that as the means of calculating our sewer assessment on it. So we report these numbers to the county on a regular basis, so they're able to differentiate stuff that ends up in just the sanitary sewer as opposed to the water that's come through our buildings. And so that's been a system that's been in place for several years, and we're bound by keeping very, very accurate records as a result. I think the precedent that was set the last time this came to the board a couple years ago was that made sense, because the averages are what they are, and there's inherent weaknesses. By using the campus square footage as an average, we're actually still bloating the estimate, at least for the auditorium, which is the chapel, because to your question, Dr. Daniels, that includes our buildings that are used 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, like our school building, our preschool, our offices, our middle school classrooms. The chapel is a much lower use building, more comparable to our main sanctuary, where it has a more focused use. And so I'm not saying we're going to use it once a month, but we're not going to be running a school or preschool or something like that. And it's not like a wedding chapel that we're just kind of, a la Las Vegas, doing as many ceremonies as we possibly can. It would just be to basically take a ceremony that would be in a 1,300-seat auditorium and put it in a more intimate, appropriate setting of a 300-seat auditorium. So it'd be the same ceremony that we would presumably already have, but in a better space for that particular occasion. So we're just moving it from a large venue to a smaller venue. That's the purpose for that. And again, I think the coffee house is where we didn't debate those numbers, because we have no actual data to evaluate that. It was just the ministry component of that building is then again can be compared to use across the rest of the campus. And we think the 28% reduction in the last 3 years is a result of not only the awareness, but all of the upgrades that we've done, or the removal of turf and the like. And so we're happy to see that and expect that to, actually I think that will go down, given the fact that in the year following the construction of the new building, we were addressing significant leaks. I don't know, it was planning a new building kind of shook the equilibrium of the system, but we had, 4-inch water main that took some time to detect the leak and deal with. So I expect that number will continue to improve as we go forward. So are there any other questions that I can address from the board?
Well, yes.
Since I've got you there,
Yes, sir.
it's related but also unrelated. What's your observation of whether now that there's rain, and this isn't going to affect how I vote, but whether people are aware that we still have a problem from the people you come in contact with, many people.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I can recall when I first became a part of these conversations a couple years ago, at times the board would lament that, you might ask the constituency to cut back and they would do the opposite. And it was, there was a huge question mark hanging over whether or not the district customers could be motivated to reduce water. And I think in part because of our participation the last time around and the amount of awareness that we raised in our constituency, which was broad, there seems to have been a tipping point where production is significantly less. I think it's the last in the board packet on a trend of 31% lower this year than it was in 2013. Well, obviously that's not just our congregation driving that. That's the district as a whole. Those conservation habits and attitudes have taken purchase within, I think, the minds and actions of the constituency. So I think the data speaks for itself.
Yeah, I can remember the meeting where we voted prematurely on a will serve, and we set up an adversarial relationship that has then become collaborative, and I think it's a benefit to the resource and the district that Twin Lakes Churches is taking the water situation so seriously and doing their part to reduce the water.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
So I know I'm just trying to understand this, but why would the indoor versus outdoor usage change? Because hopefully you're not watering your lawn as much either. So why would it be different than it was before?
We replaced every single fixture on our campus as a part of our last project, and so we're reaping the difference between. In other words, those buildings are all more water-wise than they were before. The entire campus has 1.0 gallon per flush toilets, which is the recommended lowest level for a commercial application, and all of our faucets have been replaced with very stingy little, whatever you call it, that meters the water. And so that is why it's shifted. It's made the landscaping side, even though we're watering less landscape than prior, it's shifted the ratio to the degree that it has from the 1/3, 2/3 to 3/4, the 75% to 25%.
So if you keep the outdoor use the same and lower the indoor use, the ratio changes.
Well, I was hoping that you would lower both. And
Well, we have.
It wouldn't
They have,
change
but
the
you-
ratio.
But not as much.
Yeah.
But not as much, yeah,
Okay.
proportionally speaking.
And that's based on you still use well water for your landscape?
No,
Oh, okay.
we
So
don't
it's
use
all
well.
district water
It's all
now?
district water, yeah.
And you have
And if you, and
meters
if-
on all the irrigation.
we
as
not only have meters on all irrigation, but we have a on-site weather station that's all computer controlled, and so it's constantly adjusting to weather situations in terms of how much irrigation is allowed, and so we've done everything we can to do that. We do have a baseball field, and when we let it completely go to pot, the gophers took over, and it became unusable to our children. If you were to come to the campus, you wouldn't see it just looking like a golf course. There are some functional lawn areas where people congregate and kids play, but for the most part, there's also a lot of hardscape. So
Yeah, didn't we have that meeting there?
yeah.
No, I think it's great. 28% reduction in water use indoors.
And that's
overall.
with a 40,000 square foot building added on into those last couple years. So even with that building, the 28% reduction has been achieved.
That's overall water use?
Overall water use. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board on this item?
Good evening, Becky Steinert from Aptos. That's an impressive reduction by installing so many water conservation measures, and it's to be applauded. And I just want to address your comment, Director Jaffe, that I don't think your board made a premature decision back in 2014. I think you were doing the responsible thing by declaring a moratorium. And the
Actually,
problem still exists.
we didn't declare a moratorium, and I don't want to get in back and
Okay.
forth, but what I was referring to clarify, was we didn't allow public comment
Oh,
before we voted.
all right,
Yeah.
all right.
So that was a
Well,
mistake, a procedural mistake.
I see. Well, I remember
Not
the
not a
meeting.
political mistake, a
Yeah,
procedural
a
mistake.
procedural. Well, I remember the meeting that I tried to get into when that issue of the moratorium and the approvals for the Twin Lakes Baptist Church were on the docket. And I still want to urge you to, I think, not approve this. Give yourself some time to really absorb it and think about it. And you have this water demand offset program for a reason, and you'll be setting a precedent. Even though this church has done phenomenal work, I think if you keep allowing variances and changes, you're going to make your job harder for yourself, because more people will come and want a variance. They may not have as good a detailed information, or they may not have done as much, but they're still going to come to you and ask for a variance. So I would applaud you for holding the line steady and not approving this variance, or in the very least, postponing it to give yourself some more thought to absorb it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this item?
Hi, my name is Valerie Webb. I live in the area, and I'm also, in full disclosure, on staff at Twin Lakes Church. In answer to one of the questions you asked, Mark, Dr. Jaffe, I can tell you that I have changed tremendously. Even now, people will say, oh, we've got so much water, it's all over. And I always say, no, it's not. It's not over. You don't know yet. We have all this recharge that needs to happen, and there's still saltwater intrusion that is a threat. It's not over. This isn't, you can't just go back. So you've at least changed me, and the people I have influence over, I quickly tell them not to get happy yet. It's not done. We still have to conserve, and we still need plenty more rain. I would say, we are not asking for special treatment here. We are just asking for the data that we keep, and we keep exceptionally good records for a lot of reasons, but we're just asking for the data that we keep to speak for itself. And we have it, and so we feel like it would be a great opportunity to just make use of it, and we just appreciate you guys considering that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually here for another reason, but I'm a member of Twin Lakes Baptist Church. My name is Geeky Horn. I will tell you that our church has been very good to speak out and let many members know about water conservation constantly. It's something that I would say I wasn't that much aware of until they brought it forward to us. And I think it would be a disservice to vote no on this because they have worked so hard to conserve water. If you vote no, it says to other groups, why would we bother? Because it's so difficult to get anything passed. And they continue to ask us to conserve water. And to have a group retrofit and change all their toilets and do all the crazy stuff that you need to do to be able to conserve water, I think is very unusual. And I urge you to vote yes on this.
Thank you. All right. It looks like that is all on that item.
I move we close the hearing, public hearing. Second?
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Board discussion?
Yeah, so,
Wait, we have to vote on that motion.
oh, yes.
To close the public hearing.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Bruce.
forgot that.
Unless you want to discuss
No,
whether we
no.
want to close it or not.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Sorry.
So, there was a comment that this is going to open the door to many people coming in and asking for variances. If the variances are backed by data and logic, I believe they should be granted. In this case, I do think it should be granted. The other thing, you know, I wanted to, I've got my little spreadsheet here, and I was looking at what the water demand offset of 0.17 acre feet is versus 1.13 acre feet. It's quite a bit of water. It's about 300,000 gallons difference. But then, you know, I had a 1.6 per flush toilet, you know, for toilet flush number, and 0.17, and that's probably the major usage that's going to be incurred. And it's 55,000 flushes at the 1 foot. Excuse me, 1 gallon per flush instead of 1.6. And that seemed like a reasonable number, you know. And so I look forward to the day that we don't get into the weeds and on this, that we don't have to have a water demand offset program because we have a supplemental supply. And so I'm in favor of granting the variance because I think it's backed by data and it's logical, and I would actually entertain other variance requests backed by data and logic because it's not a perfect program, and this is the process where you can account for the fact that it's not a perfect program.
Okay, any others?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think there's some rationale for doing this, but unfortunately, if you look at our requirements, you know, there's this ABC on I forget what page it is, but page 4 or 5, where it says that granting the variance is required by special circumstances applicable to property, as a result of which strict application of district resolutions and ordinances would cause the property to be deprived of privileges enjoyed by other similar properties. And I don't quite see that. I mean, they can still build these two things. It's just a question of, you know, how much effort it's going to take to do that. And I'm concerned also about number C, granting of variance would constitute a grant of special privileges. We've never done that to anyone else. In fact, I would say that anyone who's putting in an ADU, a accessory development unit, they clearly have data because they have a main house. So that means anyone who is putting up an ADU should be able to do this. In fact, you know, we should just make that change our policy so that all ADUs, we don't have a figure. Instead, we use the house's usage and apply the same thing. And so, and in fact, as the pastor even mentioned, probably everyone in the whole district is using less water than they did before when we did these policies. So if we really want to be fair, we should update all of our numbers. One way to do it would just be to take the 31% that we're down and reduce the whole thing by 31%. So I think there is some issue about fairness here that, because they're large, because they have the data, they're getting this, and whereas other people don't even know that you can do this. And so I think if we're going to do this, and there's good reasons to do it, we should do it across the board and be fair to everybody.
Can I add one quick thing that I didn't mention during my presentation, and that is when they're not using our standard factors, they're increasing the program multiplier from 1.6 to 2. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
So we're
Thank you.
making sure that we're getting a 200% offset.
Okay. Carla, you had something?
Oh, I was really impressed with the effort and actually with the size of the congregation at that church. It was an excellent education opportunity that really benefited the district in the long run because they were able to communicate a lot of water savings and the need to save water and the continuing need to save water. And so I think that there has been a give and take between the district and that community group, we'll call it that. And I would be in favor of approving it too for that reason.
Okay. Any motions?
I'd like to respond to Director Daniels. I agree that we should look at ADUs. I don't see the direct analogy that you see between this and ADUs. But I think we have an item on the agenda, so we'll be talking about that. The other is that the wording here that would cause the property to be deprived of privilege enjoyed by other similar properties in the district. I don't think there are any similar properties in the district, so I don't even know that applies. So I just wanted to point those two things out.
I was just going to mention that I don't think you have to meet all the criteria, you just have to meet one of the criteria for the variance, correct?
Mr. Basso, could you?
No, I think you need to
comment on
meet
that?
all three,
Yeah.
but I think you do.
So I'll make the motion to grant the variance.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second it then. since
Okay,
I'm
it's
in
been
favor.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries 3-2. Okay. The next item is also a public hearing. That is item 2.1, let's see, wait, sorry, 2.2.
2.2.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the old iPad here. Pages in it, it doesn't have a bookmark.
23,
I know, it's on the 24.
Okay, there we go.
24.
All right, 2.2. So,
This is also a variance for all the fees that the district charges for new connections, the water capacity fee, the meter drop-in fee, as well as the water demand offset fee. The applicant's requesting a variance from these fees for a accessory dwelling unit in Capitola, and the applicant is in the audience, and he plans to address you. I've listed in the memo the amount of the fees that is in consideration, and then the same criteria that you just talked about needs to be applied to this in order to grant a variance if that's your choice. I did include ordinance 13-01, which does outline the policy for the district to charge these fees and to also individually meter second units.
okay. If there aren't any questions for Taj, then I'll open it up to the public, or we can open the public hearing.
Thank you, Board, for taking my variance and listening to me tonight. First of all, I'd like to commend your staff, especially Shelley Flock. She's a pleasure to work with, and she always gets back to me, and she's so responsive, and she's great. And thank you, Mr. Basso, too, for your direction and helping me as well. I came to the board a few years ago, I don't know if you remember, regarding ADUs and the need for affordable housing. I don't know if you recall that, but since then, some things have changed. I don't know if you're familiar with the new Senate Bill 1069.
We are.
It's regarding affordable housing. Today I stand before you to approve that variance application in support of Senate Bill 1069 promoting accessory dwelling units as a form of affordable housing in Soquel Creek. In my circumstance, I laid out in the variance, unfortunately my mother passed away of cancer. The funeral fees were over $50,000. I still haven't even bought her a tombstone yet. So it's very expensive, so please don't die on me or anything during this. Anyways, unfortunately, my father, Gabriel, he's 84 years old, he's a widower. He also has dementia. He has other health problems, including Parkinson's. My mother was his caretaker. She's no longer here. We went and we looked to try to see what we can do with him because we have to, take care of him. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find a place for him. The places that we did find were all full. And what we did find was that the fees were $7,000 to $10,000 a month. Okay, it's unbelievable. So being in constant care, it's very hard. Housing here in Santa Cruz County, I think I've mentioned to you once before that less than 7% of the population own a home here in Santa Cruz County. That's pretty low, And so this has also been a problem statewide throughout all of California. Our numbers keep growing. Housing is becoming more and more expensive. It's unobtainable at this point. I don't know why it has to be this way. I ask myself this all the time. I have a degree in construction management. I went to Cal Poly. I'm a very highly educated person, and I have a hard time. So if you think about what it costs to own a home here, the average home here is $750,000 now? I mean, who can afford that? I don't think anybody can. So the average working man finds himself in a big predicament, Santa Cruz is a very unique place. It's one of the third happiest places in the country. I just learned from the New York Times. It's pretty amazing. The thing that I really find amazing here is the diversity of the people. We have very, very rich people, and we have very, very poor people. There seems like there's no middle class. Not having affordable housing, it creates barriers for people, and it really makes people offset. If you get sick, what are you going to do? If you lose your job, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? So I'll try to speed this up, but a close friend of mine, Andy Jones, found himself in the same predicament I am in. His mother had advanced Alzheimer's, and they could not find a place for her. Besides being outrageously expensive in the tune of $7,000 to $10,000 per month for assisted living, they had to put a mother, with them. In Santa Cruz, in the city of Santa Cruz, they promote affordable housing there. They were able to build an ADU there with no additional connection fees, no nothing. It was just, here it is. They approved it. They're good to go. I did the plans for them for free. So I would like to see us make provisions for teachers and other service people to age and stay in their homes with dignity. Do you know that you can pay for an ADU in a little over a year of what it costs you to be in assisted living? That's pretty outrageous. So an ADU costs about $150,000 to $200,000 to build, where an affordable housing unit on your own is over $500,000. I have lived in Santa Cruz County for a long time. It's amazing, like when I go to the coast and I see mansion after mansion and they're all empty, and then you go in and then you see all these people homeless. There's like 7 people that you'll find, homeless. Anyways, there's a bill that SB 1069 provides that ADUs shall not be considered new residential uses. I have the document here if you could pass this out. This is a letter I got from the Senator Wykowski who wrote the bill.
Thank you.
SB 1016 provides that ADUs shall not be considered new residential uses for the purpose of calculating utility connection fees or capacity charges, including water and sewer service. The bill prohibits a local agency from requiring an ADU applicant to install a new or separate utility connection or impose a related connection fee or capacity charge for ADUs that are contained within existing residence or accessory structure. For attached and detached ADUs, this fee or charge must be proportionate to the burden of the unit on the water and the system and may not exceed the reasonable cost of providing the service. I don't see how these fees are reasonable, and I don't know how you came up with them. I asked the board, can you give me a quantitative actual cost of providing these services? Because I don't think that they're reasonable, and I think they're not based on SB 1069. And if the board can't give me these numbers, I think that we shouldn't be charging them.
Okay. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. I just want you to know that local people are in favor of SB 1069. It is endorsed by the City of Capitola and Senator Monning. I hope someday that, you know, everybody can have a home and none of you are going to be in my predicament. You know, they say in the Bible that you can have 10,000 enemies and have one advocate and become a king. Tonight, I need 5 advocates so we all can become kings for affordable housing. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address us on this item? You can go ahead and take a seat. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have a clarification I want to make sure with Mr. Basso, Becky Steinert. I think that I have heard your board discuss this piece of legislation before, and it was determined that this district is not beholden to grant by the state law 1069, that you don't have to grant water service just because the state tells you to. Is that still correct?
Well, that's not an accurate statement.
Help me with that, please.
1069 has certain requirements with respect to connection fees and separate utility fees, and that part of 1069 applies to local agencies as defined in that statute, which are cities and counties. So it doesn't say that the district doesn't have to provide water. It says that it applies to cities and counties, as it currently is written.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify. And while I really empathize with this gentleman, I think, again, you're opening the door to a lot of other people coming, and there are ADU workshops going on throughout the county. There'll be one in Aptos Simpkins Center on the 26th, and they're being very well attended. There's a lot of interest, so you're going to have a floodgate open again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on this item?
My name is Tom Stumbaugh. I live in Aptos. And my concern here is that you people just keep issuing more and more and more permission to use our water when we're in a critical overdraft. That discourages me from being so competent about saving water. The average household in this district, per person, 50 gallons a day. My last 5 water bills have been 3 gallons, 5 gallons, 7 gallons, 3 gallons, and 7 gallons. And how they use 50 gallons is beyond me. I flush my toilet with a bucket.
Okay.
And I can flush it with less than a gallon of water, depending on what's there.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. No, it's okay. We're good.
My plumbing is less than a gallon.
Okay, we understand. Okay, so
Move to close the hearing.
I'll second it.
been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
No discussion
so now
of that motion.
of that motion. Discussion on the, actually I have a question just also for education of the public. Just, I understand the water demand offset fee because we know that's to offset water use. Can you just explain the water capacity fee? I get it, but I want to make sure they get it.
Yeah, the water capacity fee is usually comprised of two components. One is the buy-in to the existing system. That's our wells, our tanks, our distribution system, our pumps. And then the other portion is the future supply, and that's, a heavy lift in the situation we're in. And so those are the two costs. And then there are meter drop-in fees, and essentially that's the cost of the meters.
Great, thank you. Other questions or discussion? Bruce?
I want to address this issue about, people and their abilities and their problems. And many years ago, while I was on the board, I tried to get something like PG&E has. They have Lifeline Rates for people, because we have people in our community who, they're living off Medicare and they're stretched, and maybe we could do the same thing. And it turns out there is a law that says we have to charge the same amount to everyone, based on their usage. And so we can't take money from one person who may be well off and can pay high fees and give it to someone who isn't well off and can't pay those fees. So that's the stricture we're against, is that, I understand you may have an issue, and your issue may be a tough one, and you may be deserving of some help, but our hands are tied because of the law that we have to charge the same amount to the same people. So, unless some intrinsic justification would apply it to that, not just, one's ability to pay, we can't do anything. So I thought that should be explained.
That's good. Carla was next, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to point that out too. So go on, Bruce. I'm just going to rethink.
Back to my spreadsheet. So at 0.165 acre feet per year, that's a little bit over 50,000 gallons per year usage, which equates to 146.917808. It's not that accurate. Gallons per day. So I'd like to see a reevaluation of whether that's the right number now. And I know it's a can of worms that's being opened, but I think I'll make a motion after this discussion. But it just seems like there's, to me, of the fees, there's, I know we had a higher fee before for the water capacity, and we voted to allow a 5/8 inch restricted water capacity fee, acknowledging that probably there wasn't a lot more, extreme amount of water use. So that reduced the charges. The drop-in fees are the drop-in fees, but the water demand offset fee may need to be reevaluated. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Carla, did you have yours?
Yeah, I want to suggest, I want to expand on Dr. Jaffe's, what he just said, in that perhaps you want to defer the application until, some other things are coming down on, from the state on ADUs. There is a lot of discussion, as Becky Steinert correctly pointed out, about ADUs. This is our policy right now, And we couldn't diverge from that policy right now because it would be extremely unfair to the people who'd just gotten permits or apply for permits, and for the future until we change our policy, and we aren't in a position to do that tonight. So, but I think it's a very good suggestion, especially in view of the data that Twin Lakes Church presented, that it could be the offset program is in need of tweaking and reevaluation and tweaking, but that can't happen tonight either.
President Liu,
Go ahead.
to that end, and I think I mentioned this to Mr. Apgar when he called me, that Senator Weisskopf has actually introduced a bill that would modify 1069 so that it would apply to all agencies. If that passed, that would change what your policy had to be, because the state would be ordering you to do so. But the status of it, I don't know.
Okay. And one other
Director
thing.
Daniels?
Isn't 128 a constitutional amendment? Therefore, it could not be changed by the legislature.
Are you talking about 218?
Sorry, you said, right, 218.
Yeah, they're not changing that. They're talking about amending SB 1069, which is not a constitutional amendment. That's a government code section. And that government code section is the one that limits local agencies to cities and counties. And they are declaring it a public policy that they're talking about amending it to include all special districts.
I was under the impression that 218 was part of the thing that required equal treatment and, cost-based.
Yeah, it does, and that might be some challenge that'll be made to that, but I'm just telling you that there is legislation.
Something going on, right?
While I told him, and I've told Steinbrenner, that it does not apply, there is an amendment in the legislature which could change that.
Now, this is for connection fees, right?
Yes, connection fees and the requirement of separate meters.
Because I mean, you'll have to look into Prop 218, but when I was working in sanitation, it was my understanding that connection fees did not apply.
In 218, but
Yeah.
26, Prop 26 came into being after that, and they
Okay.
applied those to
Okay.
connection fees. It's a proportionality that.
I just wanted to add, well, Director Jeffy's calculations were correct. The .165 acre feet for the ADU has the multiplier of 1.6 applied to
It's
it.
even more.
So if
Less,
you
divide by 1.6.
divide by 1.6, it's .103, which is a daily use of 92 gallons. So it may still be high, it may not, but
Not
it's
as high.
not as high.
Thanks for the correction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once again, I sure hope all this water demand offset goes away soon, so we don't spend an hour on variances.
That would just be part of this.
What's that?
That's
It'd be
only a part of it. It's not
That's a
all
part
of
of
it.
it, yeah, but, and so that, so that we don't have to protect the resource as, we'll still protect it, but it's, that there, once we get a supplemental supply, it will be, give us a buffer, is the way I look at it. Yeah, so.
I just want to point out, so tonight, I mean, even if by virtue of fairness and current policy, we were unable to, that we denied the variance, it doesn't mean you couldn't wait and see what happened with the bill to
Right.
proceed. Entertain any motions?
Okay, I'll move that we deny the variance last.
I did have one question, maybe Taj can answer this, or Mr. Epcar. Is this an ADU that would be within the unit?
That's a good question. I do not believe it was planned to be attached to the existing house.
Is that right? It's going to be a separate building?
It's a separate building, yes. it is.
Okay.
But it's within the existing lot, and I believe SB 1069 doesn't have a differentiated difference between.
Right.
It does, but it does specifically, but I can tell you about that
And our
later.
policies do as well.
Yeah.
So it's been moved
So I moved.
to deny the variance.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I would like to make a motion that, I know there's a lot on staff's plate, but I'd like to make the motion that at the appropriate time to reevaluate the water use factor for ADUs,
That's for all ADUs or just this case?
all ADUs. Yeah, it's not a case by case. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda, and two of the items, 3.4 and 3.5, are not going to be on the consent agenda because they require a vote. Roll call.
Roll call.
I have to, on the approval of minutes, one of the minutes I wasn't present, so I think we have to, and I think the other minutes, other directors weren't present, so we have to
So
pull
do
those off.
pull both of the minutes off of consent,
So we're left with,
3.2 and 3.3.
yeah. I move approval of
Okay.
the
Of which-
3.2 and 3.3 on the consent agenda.
All second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we would go back to minutes, I think, next.
Yeah.
So the February 21st meeting minutes, I think there were only 3 of us there, so we needed 3 of us here to vote. So I'll move we approve those minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstaining, correct?
Abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
Yeah,
2 abstentions.
Thank you for keeping me
Okay.
on it.
Then the April 4th meeting minutes. I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I have to abstain.
1 abstention. Okay, so we will now go to item 3.4, the destruction of the production wells.
Yes, this is a proposal to adopt the plans and specifications and call for bids for destroying 5 of our abandoned water wells that we no longer use. One of the wells that no longer produces is Monterey Well, and we propose to keep that for monitoring groundwater levels.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. You need a roll call for this?
Yes, there's
For both resolutions?
So,
I'll
are you
s-
making a motion for both?
For both, yes.
And I'm sorry, who seconded?
Director Christensen.
Okay.
Yes,
I guess.
sorry,
public comment.
you're right.
Oh,
I forgot
do
about
that.
public comment on that. Yes, go ahead. Please.
I'm sorry, could you list off the 5 wells that are going to be destroyed? And also explain, I think it's a good idea to keep them for monitoring wells if at all possible.
So they're all listed on the agenda packet in detail on each one.
Okay, I have the packet. Where? I don't see it.
I mean, the whole item.
Are you on page 129?
87 of 312.
81 starts all the details of what's going to be done.
But the 5 wells.
The
are
list of the wells are listed.
Okay, I see it now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But what about using for monitoring wells? It costs so much money to make monitoring wells. Why don't you keep them for that use?
So that's addressed for each one.
Thank you.
Okay, in the packet.
In fact, none of them make very good monitoring wells, because monitoring wells, you'd like to have at each layer of the aquifer. And these aren't.
They're not screened properly.
Well,
Yeah.
they have several screens is the
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Sorry about that. Okay, so
Director Lathrop?
This is for both resolutions?
both
We're
resolutions.
back to the motions?
Yeah, sorry.
Aye. Yes.
Director Daniels?
Yes.
Director Jaffe?
Destroy the wells.
Director Christensen?
Yes.
President Leahy?
Yes. And so item 3.5, the main replacement bid award.
Yeah, unfortunately, we received only 2 bids, but they're relatively competitive bids.
Relatively.
Our recommendation is to award this contract to Granite Rock for $1.336010, $1,336,010 for the Clubhouse Drive main replacement project. It includes 2,900 lineal feet of main replacement and 63 services, as well as pavement repair, striping, and slurry seal.
I just want to mention that this particular area has been prone to leaks, and so to prevent additional loss of water, it was moved up on the schedule. All right. Anyone from the public wish to address us on this item? Seeing none, I will move approval of all 3 motions, including the resolution.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Now, do we have to do roll call?
Roll call, sorry. My bad.
Okay. Dr. Lather?
Aye.
Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
Dr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Dr. Christensen?
Aye.
President Wickett?
Yes. All right. So the next item on the agenda is oral communications. So this would be a time for anyone that wishes to speak to the board about an item not on tonight's agenda.
Time limit.
And we're just in the interest of time, we're trying to have comments be concise and limited to 2 minutes.
I'll be concise. My name is Becky Steinert, and I still am very much opposed to the Pure Water Soquel project, and would very much like to have you consider other options, alternatives seriously. I don't see that really happening. I have great concern about the injection of advanced treated wastewater. It is still wastewater, and there is still stuff that makes it through, especially when there are spikes of contaminants that come through, when there are equipment malfunctions, and I do not want it put into the groundwater. I do support it having percolation ponds, and I've been to a couple of Dr. Fisher's recent presentations. They're excellent, and I would support that, but I do not want it injected into the groundwater supply. If you do continue with that, I want it brought to a full vote, a Prop 218 vote, before all water users within the Purisma district. Not a protest vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? On item not on tonight's agenda.
My name is Adele Gardner, and I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I am here to 100% support the Pure Water Soquel project. I'm really excited that you folks have come up with a plan that might actually help us solve this problem we've been facing for as long as I can remember. I understand that there are always going to be places that people are going to be concerned about their neighborhoods, and I hope that the board and our district can compromise and find ways to make an acceptable, appealing, good neighbor of the pure water plant. I am so happy that we are coming up with a plan that is safe, healthy, and will help solve what I consider the biggest environmental problem facing our community. And I want to commend you and encourage you to go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Any board oral communications? Yes.
I was looking through the packet. Is there a place for the MGA?
There is on the board calendar, and
So I can talk about it at
and
that
I think
point.
on the general manager, specifically the Denmark
Yes,
stuff.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's also, it's in my GM report.
Okay, we'll talk at that point.
Okay.
Okay, me.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to quickly report out on a meeting I went to last week. It was a symposium, kind of a debriefing symposium between, to report out on their report and discussion on California delegations that visited Australia to see what they did and didn't do correctly in resolving their water problems there. They went through a 12-year drought and made a lot of mistakes, and they didn't want to see California make the same one. They saw California being in the same position due to our 5-year drought. And they point out a couple of things. I'll just say 2 things. One of them was they wanted to emphasize, they have a 15-point sheet of recommendations and even more volumes of written material, but I'll just limit it to, they said, any water solution that you try to do to change, to change the direction of the water shortage will take 20 to 30 years to get really accomplished. And so we're way behind, in our own personal district right now, so which would explain some of the immediacy. Jerry Brown and members of his staff went to Australia. I think they directly influenced what the recommendations were for his response to the water crisis was. And the other point was that even during the drought, they devoted 23% of all their water resources to the environment, because they recognized that environmental protection was crucial to their future way of life, and they had to keep their trees and the landscape and the aquatic biota healthy if they were going to have a viable future once the drought broke. And those are 2 things. And the other really revolutionary thing was they separated property rights from water rights, and they've got this massive exchange program where farmers from one side of the continent can sell their water rights if they're not using them to another side or to a community. It is something that could never happen in California, but they were really saying that was the most revolutionary thing that they had accomplished.
Wow.
But anyway, so it was very interesting, very, very up there, not practical and down to earth, but it was still interesting to hear what people had been talking about. So it was worth it. It was worth the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Anyone else? Bruce?
As a contrast to that, I just got back from a trip to New Zealand where in some areas they measure rainfall not in inches as we do, or feet. They measure it in meters, which is a little bit more than a yard. Last year, one place had 14 meters of rainfall.
Okay, Michelle, you have anything? Okay, I'll just mention a couple of things. One is that I appreciate the people coming early before the meeting. We've had a couple times where we've had an opportunity to answer questions and be available to listen and discuss things if people want to come before the meeting, and we'll try and keep you updated on those. Today it was at 5:30, and so that's just valuable, and thank you for those that came. And then the other thing, several people mentioned Pure Water Soquel or other projects. I just wanted to mention that our community water plan has still multiple lines that we're going on because we don't know what's going to end up working. So in addition to investigating and doing environmental study on the Pure Water Soquel project, also we're still keeping an eye on the desalination, and we're going to get an update on May 2nd, or 16th.
May 2nd from the Santa Cruz folks.
Okay.
And then
So the river water transfer and how things are going with the city of Santa Cruz on May 2nd, and then the 2 weeks later, that following meeting, we'll get an update on the desalination. And then we're also continuing to work on the idea of recharge, stormwater recharge, and of course, conservation, which has been super important over the last 13, 15 years. So that's all I've got. Next item is the Special Board Assignments Status Report.
Right, and just 2 items to point out here on this screen shown here. I know Director Jaffe was interested in getting some data analysis done, and what staff is realizing as we move into the rate analysis over the coming year, we'd like to ask if that could be incorporated in that.
Great.
Okay, thank you. And then regarding your other question, when's a good time to talk about the seawater intrusion interface and the work that's going on? I think actually this is a good place. I can frame it up if you like.
Please.
So we know we have seawater intrusion in the southern eastern 1/3 of our district and at Pleasure Point. The question is, how far offshore is it in that middle of that banana shape right out in the ocean there? And we've had a delegation from Denmark come and meet with us, talk to this body, also to the Mid-County Groundwater Agency, and present, and they believe they have a technology which can fly over the ocean with a helicopter and detect the seawater intrusion in the aquifers beneath the ocean. So I think we received a scope of work from them yesterday, and I'll leave it at that if you want to take it from there.
Right. So to me, the biggest one of the biggest uncertainties that would make a difference in how the resource is managed is where's the seawater freshwater interface underneath the ocean in the aquifer. If it's close, that means that although we haven't detected seawater intrusion at our coastal monitoring wells, that it's going to be there soon. If it's far away, then we have more time before it intrudes into the aquifer. And the importance of once the salt water gets into the aquifer is that it's hundreds, if not thousands of years to flush it out before you can use that portion of the aquifer again. And then if it gets into the point where we have production wells, we have to abandon those production wells, and it's very expensive to construct new production wells. So this proposal that the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Agency is interested in funding, and Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Agency consists of our district, Central Water District, County of Santa Cruz, City of Santa Cruz, private well pumpers, and small mutual companies, is to actually detect or attempt to detect where that interface is offshore, and it's using very sophisticated instrumentation. I was tasked with, because I have a science background, as does Director Daniels, and actually the whole board has a science background, to see if there's any fatal flaws in their proposal, and so we're in the process of doing that. And so, especially Director Daniels, if you have any input, maybe we could have a call sometime and we could talk about this. It's not cheap, but it could be some very, very valuable data if it in fact is able to detect where the fresh water is. That's about all I had to say. Is there anything
No,
else?
I think that's it. Yeah, the MGA board has given you the go-ahead to make the decision, and we met with the delegation. John Ricker here is the County Water Resources Director, was part of that meeting, along with one of the private pumpers that's on the board and other people, and they unanimously thought it was a good idea, of course, upon your vetting of the more technical side of it. So,
Okay. Great, thank you. And can we go to the board planning calendar then?
yeah, so a couple things to report on the board calendar.
Did you have public, anything on that particular? Yeah, go ahead. Come on up.
Thank you very much. I was at that Mid-County Groundwater meeting when it was discussed, and that group wanted to also bring in Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency as a partner. Are they being included in this examination of the process?
John can answer it, and John, before you answer it, I sent out an email. I don't know if you are aware of it, but I just seen if the permitting can be expedited to the sanctuary. But go ahead and
Okay, thank you.
maybe John can answer that.
John Ricker, County of Santa Cruz. I have exchanged a couple of emails with Brian Lockwood, the interim general manager at PVWMA. They had expressed some interest in participating. He indicated that this is a really new subject for his board and that they probably could not get up to speed soon enough to participate.
Okay.
One of the differences for them is their saltwater interface is already on shore, so they
know where it is.
do have a better sense of where it is. It's already there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So they probably will not be participating,
Okay.
which
Kind of makes sense.
keeps the cost down, keeps the permitting easier.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Okay, anyone else on that item? Okay, so the board planning calendar,
Yes, 3 items to point out. The Finance Standing Committee meets April 24th, and that's Directors Lather and Christensen.
was it on the last item or the planning calendar, or?
The MGA modeling of the,
Go ahead, come on up.
Yeah.
It's on the calendar too, so that, that meeting, the upcoming meeting.
Okay, so I attended the meeting where the presentation was made by the representative from Denmark, and one question I would have is, has there been any verification of the of the modeling that is performed by this this detection process?
Okay.
It seemed like they collect the data, and then they do a lot of modeling in order to come up with the final result of where the interface is and what the concentrations of the water are at various locations. And I'm just concerned that the modeling process has been vetted and we have some confidence that it's giving valid results.
Good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would definitely look into that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so running back to the calendar. So 3 things to point out. The Finance Standing Committee meets April 24th, Directors Lather and Christensen. And then May 16th, we have the budget workshop. That starts at 5 p.m. here, and food will be provided. And then on May 10th is a meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation from 4:30 to 5. That's Wednesday, May 10th. That'll be down in Monterey. I know Director Daniels will be down there attending Aqua, but if any other board members would like to attend with staff, some of us will be going down there specifically for that meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation to just inform them and update them of what we're doing, like we did last time.
And thank you for
Is this the right time for me to say I'm not going to be here next week? So my alternate's going to need to,
on the finance committee?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's Director Daniels.
Okay. And while we're on the calendar, Director Daniels, the MGA, I'm gone that week.
Yes.
You know that one?
I know that.
Okay, got it. I can't phone in for that one. All right, anything else on the calendar?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, doesn't look like there's much on the organization-wide status report. So, unless that's, I'm sure, or does this include all of
This
the
includes it all.
individual components? Okay, all right. So, anything, conservation and customer service?
Sure. I just wanted to mention, it's in the report that the state lifted their drought state of emergency on April 7th. And so staff has been working hard to outreach our message that even though the drought is technically over, we still have a local water supply shortage, and we need people to continue to conserve in the excellent ways that they have been doing for the last few years. And so we'll be putting out some articles. We've updated our website and be doing some other outreach around that message. And then the other thing was that we hired a customer service field worker 1 to replace the retirement vacancy that we had at the end of the year. The new staff member's name is Alex Kelso, and he started last week. And so we're very excited to have him and be resuming some of the maintenance activities that we've had to put aside for the last couple months.
Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask, what were the counties, the couple of counties that weren't lifted out of the drought?
One was Tuolumne. I want to say Fresno, maybe Tulare.
Oh, Tulare, yeah.
I can't think of the
Central
fourth.
Valley.
Okay.
All Central Valley. Mm-hmm.
Anyone in the audience have a comment on this report? Or on any of, I guess we're doing one organization-wide report, so.
I had meant to look it up and I just forgot about it.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on then to engineering.
Starting with the hexavalent chromium project, I think we briefed the board that we are moving on to a new treatment technology called reduction coagulation filtration. And so we have officially exited the contract, canceled the procurement contract with Ionics for abandoning the strong-based anion exchange process. We're going to do a real quick pilot project in the next starting second week of May. So you might see a little skid-mounted device out at the San Andreas well site. If you are interested in taking a look at that, let me know. It's basically a traditional column-type media that we use ferrous chloride to reduce the chromium and then filter it out. It's been proven and some new advances have been found so that this appears to be a really good choice for the district.
And significantly cheaper, I think. Too.
And operationally, it'll be much more simple for our staff.
Great.
In doing this, is this significantly, since it's significantly cheaper, rather than having one treatment plant for pairs of wells or triples of wells, might we consider putting a separate treatment on each well or something different, some different arrangement?
Unfortunately, no. There's still space constraints, and we've already installed the raw water mains between the 3 wells that we plan to treat, so that's not lost effort.
Okay.
And that's still the approach that we would take, is to have a centralized facility.
But it still means that we use 2 out of the 3 wells, perhaps rotating, but still.
Right. It'll still be a 2,000 GPM facility, which is adequate for our needs.
Right.
As part of that project, there's still some ongoing work at SqCWD Well, which if you drive by it, you'll see
Saw that.
efforts. Very shortly, there should be a rebuilt building going up there, and we hope to wrap it up next month.
Great.
As I said, the Clubhouse Drive project, we're going to get right on real quick. Thank you for approving that bid award. We expect to get started in the next 3 weeks or so. I think, as Ron mentioned, Rosemary Menard will be here presenting to you about their efforts with the City of Santa Cruz. We did have a kickoff meeting with City of Santa Cruz as well as Scotts Valley Water District last week to initiate the request for qualifications for that pipe loop study. And our goal here, just so you are aware, is we're trying to be set and in place to receive a limited amount of water next November to a portion of the west end of Capitola, west of Soquel Creek. So that's our goal, and we'll keep you posted on how that goes.
So that goes out soon, and then we'll get a bid award.
Right, it'll come back to you. Santa Cruz will likely be the lead awarding agency, but it'll be a shared cost, so we'll come back to you when we get that proposal and share that proposal with you. One thing that's listed in item C here is we have officially successfully installed some monitoring equipment into Cabrillo College's, one of their wells.
Yeah.
And that's going to help give us some data gap information for the BC unit. So you might be seeing some of that data in future reports or graphs, and so we really appreciate working together with them on that. And other than that, I don't have any other updates, but there are more items that we've been working on.
Okay.
Just one.
Yes.
So, before Becky,
we had public comment on all the
you already
reports.
have. Okay.
On the organization-wide status.
Okay, good. Just I'm sure you're paying attention to this. Just want to reiterate with school traffic on Clubhouse Drive to be sensitive to that in terms of where the work's being done during the time that school's in session, because this is going to take quite a while to do, right? This is
fortunately, a
They'll go
good
into
chunk
the
of the
summer.
work will go through the summer, but there will be a piece of it that we get started sooner, and we'll have traffic control. We have requirements to be on and off the street at certain times.
Right, and perhaps do this areas, does it go as far as the school or no?
Close.
It goes up Cuesta a little bit.
Yeah.
But
So-
we go down to the beginning of the golf course to St. Andrews.
Okay. Yeah, just
We'll do our best.
phasing
Not quite to this.
phasing as best as possible to have minimum impact on the traffic.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Bruce?
Yes, on number 12, the surface water purchase pilot program, you talked about the loop tests, and that we won't be able to receive water until November 2018, a year and a half from now. Is that because of the issue about the water quality changing throughout the year?
Right. We've received word that the city's water quality does vary over the course of the year, and so preliminary suggestions that we've received is that we need to pilot test the pipe test during the winter months. So our goal prior to 2018 is this actual winter in November to have the pipe loop study up and running, and then hopefully have some information from that to be ready to prepare for the following winter.
Okay, thank you.
Just following up on that, is it feasible if the initial tests are indicate that there's not a chemistry problem to actually accelerate it to this coming year instead of wait for the test analysis in the following year?
Probably not.
Okay.
But we can ask that question.
Yeah.
When we interview the consultants.
Yeah, because there's a restriction on what time of year.
Right.
I
Right
forget
now
the-
it's November to May.
Right. So, if it's possible, that would, to accelerate that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll just add, it's a tight schedule. Christine, Taj have been working on this along with Santa Cruz and other agencies. And, the testing needs to take part during the winter, so next year. And then you've got to, if you do need to add orthophosphate, you need to do it for several months, at least 6 months ahead of time. So we're trying to figure if we can, time's critical, so they're working fast.
Okay. Glad to make sure it's safe, though.
Yeah.
All right, and then operations and maintenance, any particular?
The only thing I wanted to point out was that there were 2 main breaks on Clubhouse last month on 2 consecutive days, so it's time. So
Okay.
any other questions?
Questions on that? Okay, and then I think we have the production amounts and then special projects.
Yeah, I'll cover special projects tonight. So on page 197, it mentions that the district submitted the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, the WIFIA letter of interest, which was a 25-page mini grant, if you will, to get our foot in their door for a $25 million type grant or low-interest loan. And we're still waiting. We've been conversing a lot with the Regional Water Board on the groundwater quality grant, WaterSmart. And expect to hear some good news here in the near future. And then on page 197, if you could, Shelley, I just want to pull up a couple of the nice ads that Melanie and Beck have been doing. Here's one. The next one here comes up. And then there's a third one. Also, we have, as part of our ongoing 2017 community education series, the district's hosting a free coastal monitoring well demonstration on May 12th, and that's on our website. We welcome customers and community members to come learn about this monitoring, and it's pretty exciting when you can take a sample near the coast and frightening and see that it's halfway to seawater. On page 221, The Sentinel continues to do the community a service by covering our meetings. You can see that on this headline, Soquel Creek nixes raw wastewater treatment from the drinking water supply. And then on page 230, I'll take this opportunity to, since Melanie's not here, just to recognize the hard work that she does. These are monthly columns. There's one, Waterflix, just kind of, you know, when you write columns continuously like this, you know, occasionally you want one that's just more popular that kind of gets you a certain readership that you might not normally get, and then maybe they'll capture your, you know, their attention and read your next article that comes up. And here's the next one. So she's been taking the lead on this, you know, for a while now, since she's been back, actually. And so those are published in the Aptos and Capitola Times, you know, our Water Wisdom column. So let's see. That's all I'll report out on for her at this time.
Thank you. I think with Leslie here and the finance report next, I would say.
Yes, there was only one meeting in March, so you're getting both the February and March I&I reports in this month. And I just wanted to point out that it does look a little bit different. We have made some changes, and it will continue to evolve over the next few months as we kind of refine it a little bit. But I did want to point out that water consumption for both February and March has dropped below our budget expectations for the first time this fiscal year. Our water billings for February were almost 8% under what we had anticipated, and for March at 13% under where we had anticipated. So we're still over budget about almost 4% fiscal year to date, but February and March did dip down, and I'm assuming it's likely because of the rainfall and people aren't utilizing the water outdoors yet. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, seeing none, then thank you very much. Human Resources?
I don't have anything to add to my written report, but I did want to remind the board members that we have a manager-hosted breakfast tomorrow in the yard from 8 to 9. It's something that we try to do at least once a year to celebrate the hard work of our staff. So if anyone would like to join us, we'd welcome you to join us. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be teaching school.
I have it on my calendar. It depends if I wake up.
Okay, so General
Great.
Manager's report?
Yes, I have a couple things to point out on page 243. The June 6th and November 24th board meetings will be held at the Community Foundation, and they will not be televised or recorded. It costs us about $1,000 per meeting to do that, so I talked with the board president, and we thought we'd try to keep those agendas light. And of course, we'll have Karen there to report out on the minutes of the meeting. And then on page 244, as I often try to keep, thank you, Shelley, that's perfect, the board and the community abreast of going-ons in the purification world, there's this article right here that talks about Silicon Valley wants to be the first area in California to put purified water directly back into the tap. These are their reverse osmosis filters that they have at their purification plant over there now. The second article, recycled water project gets permit to inject highly treated wastewater in the Seaside Basin, discusses how the Pure Water Monterey project is progressing. And you can see that in there, the Central Coast Water Board officials stated that they're very confident in the purification technologies and the water quality also. And then the third one, another project that's going on, is down there in Southern California, the East County Advanced Water Purification, which is run by the Padre Dam Municipal Water District. They're looking to serve about 32,000 residents soon with purified water. It'll go up to a dam and then out to them. So kind of an update of the latest going on there. Okay. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
I just had
a question.
Yeah, pardon me that I'm a little slow on asking this. On page 190 and 191 are the graphs that show from 2008 to 2017 the production for the Prisma and Aromas. And I noticed that this year looks like there's slightly different trends for the Prisma and Aromas, where the just for the first 3 months, it looks like there's still a downward trend in Brisima, whereas in the Arumas, relative to the, last several years, whereas in the Arumas, it looks like there's an upward trend. Is that due to transfers, or is that between the different, parts of the district, or is that due to
We've been
the
cutting back
behavior?
in sub-area 2, which is the Cabrillo College area, Estates Drive.
And pumping?
Both sub-area 1 and sub-area 3 have been lending that demand, that supply.
Okay, so it may just be not
Shifting of
necessarily a
pumping.
difference in behavior in different parts of the district as much as
Right.
we're moving the water around. Okay.
Correct.
Question. Okay, so District Council. Oh, no, wait, sorry. System Water Production Status Reports next. So item 5.4.
So this report is an annual report that we prepare, and it summarizes the condition and capacity of our production wells. It also summarizes water quality and our water treatment plant performance. It also presents what our maximum day demand here is for the district and the peak hour demand. There are state laws that require that public water systems meet the maximum day demand and 4 hours of peak hourly demand. So if there's any questions on this, I can answer them.
Okay, so, any members of the public have questions or comments on this item?
Just this item or any of the reports?
Just, this is, we already had a comment for all the staff reports as one group, the organizational wide status reports, and now this is the system water production status report on the wells.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that all of the status reports had comment.
all
Because I
together.
do have a question about the status of the Granite Way well. So I guess that's in that. Can I
Okay.
still
Go
ask
ahead
that?
and ask the question.
What is the status of the Granite Way well?
It's okay, I'll let Taj answer that.
It was drilled and completed, and we're finalizing the design for the infrastructure that supports the well.
And what is the big bag of stuff there? It's been sitting there for a long time.
It's gravel.
Gravel? Okay, thank you.
All right.
So, then I do have questions about the production report.
That's fine.
I note in the Country Club well, there are concentrations of TCP that exceed the draft MCL. Is that well offline because of this contaminant, or are you just adding it in and mixing it to reduce the level?
So, I mean, my understanding is that, there isn't an established MCL at this point. So this is just a draft. We haven't made a decision on that yet.
So it's still in production and
Correct.
still putting this out into the system. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last question about the production at the O'Neill Ranch well. Is that well still offline because of the ammonia problem?
And the report, it mentioned that it's down to 1
1 hour a day.
hour a day.
Okay, and any news on why the ammonia problem is there?
It's being investigated, and do you want to explain it?
Thank you.
You go ahead. That is all in the report as well.
We did do the depth discrete study that was completed. There's a draft report that's about to be finalized on that, and it did identify 2 zones with higher levels of ammonia, and the next board meeting, we hope to bring back a proposal to do a feasibility test to packer off the affected well screens, and hope to only lose maybe 17% of production on that. So you'll be seeing the results of that report next.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so District Council.
Yes, there's not too much to report. The Supreme Court's still thinking about all those other cases. There's a new case out of Coachella Valley. That's somewhat interesting, but I don't think it's going to have much impact on us. And that is whether the reserved rights when reservations were created actually includes a reserved right to the groundwater beneath those reservations, which is causing a lot of concern down there. So I'll be following that too.
Okay, great, thank you. Public Outreach Committee oral report.
Yeah, I'll just provide a brief overview, and then if any of the committee members want to add to it, that'd be wonderful. So the Public Outreach Committee met on April 11th. Director Christensen and Tom Lehoux are on that committee. And we basically went over the community water plan progress. Also, the chair and vice chair were selected. Director Christensen was nominated as the chair and selected, and Director Lehoux as vice chair. I don't know if anybody would like to add anything additional to that.
I mean, for me, the focus was on updating the community water plan, which I think is, I just want to make sure everybody understands that's a kind of a continually evolving document so that we're as accurate as possible, and that we gave feedback, and then I sent my own feedback in on specifics, and then you guys have seen that in tonight's agenda as well. And that's going to go out to all customers.
Yeah, it's
in this
on the
next
agenda
quarter.
tonight, actually, as an item.
Just,
Yeah.
I've been informed that, was it, the next door neighbors websites now are receiving information from the Soquel Creek Water District, and that, I think that's a good thing, that
Yeah.
we're getting the word out more.
Yeah, we were able, I think just this week, to, GIS was able to actually outline our entire area, and because we're a government agency, we get a special deal. We can go in and hit every next door neighbor within that geographic region. Is that right?
I think so, the
Yeah,
whole district.
yeah, the whole district. So you might have seen a bump up in that, not just, like Soquel neighbors or another one are doing them separately. We, in one
All the
swoop.
neighborhood
Yeah.
organizations.
Yeah, and we did. We saw a lot of
I think
comments
that's
today on people concerned about different
I think
things.
that's a
or-
quantum leap in
Yeah.
our outreach, and
Yeah. Yeah.
well, kudos to doing that.
And we did discuss the idea of having a little time before the meetings, kind of like we do at the MGA, for people to drop in and
Good idea.
and if other directors want to come and just be here to answer questions. It's nice for people to have a chance for one-on-one rather than this situation.
Right, a lot of people like to do it in a less formal manner.
Okay.
Okay. Then would be supplemental supply oral
Right.
report.
Right, so quickly an update, and then board members may want to chime in. Rochelle Lather was nominated as chair, and Bruce Daniel, since you weren't there, I think you were nominated as vice chair.
Yeah, don't worry.
Took advantage of that. Again, we gave an update on the community water plan there, and discussed the various supplemental supply options that are in the draft work plan to pursue those various options, as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting tonight. So that was the essence of that meeting.
Okay. So we'll move on to administrative business. We have a will serve letter on the former program that is an unconditional will serve.
This is for a small ADU on Las Lomas Drive. The applicant did complete the water demand offset fee of $9,075. And this is one of those projects that was in motion before the changes last year were made to the water demand offset program, so they were able to pay the entire fee. It's for your consideration.
Okay. Questions? Any one that wishes to speak on this item? You can come to the podium, please.
I wasn't sure when you had the public comment after the staff report. I didn't catch that.
So at the very beginning, where it said where I said organizational staff report, that's all of the different staff reports. So
Okay.
we're getting used to that too. So I asked for public comment then, but that's
Okay.
fine. Go ahead. We're learning.
So my name's Nancy Stucker, and I'll also respond to the public outreach. Just as part of giving you some more input, and also in response to the fact that you're discussing the need to determine, the really serious need to determine how far salt water is intruding or how far it has intruded into the aquifer. I just want to reassure you that people who don't want a water treatment plant in a residential area doesn't mean that we don't understand how important that is, the saltwater intrusion, and needing to do something about it. And I too think that the water issue is one of our most pressing issues. And I wanted to just let you know that people who are against that know what a serious problem it is. And I want to thank you for looking into other sites and considering the zoning and not having, looking at locations for a water treatment plant in areas that are not zoned as residential. And thank you for listening to the, to the public on this issue, and responding and doing more work, because I know it's more work for you to keep looking. But I think some of those sites may prove to be a lot better. And I just want to take issue with the comment that, if you put it anywhere, there's going to be a problem with it. And I don't think you will have a problem or a lot of opposition if you put it in an industrially zoned area. I think your opposition would pretty much be down to about 1% of what it is right now, perhaps. So.
Thank you. We'll try and probably best. There wasn't an item really about that on tonight's agenda, so it probably would have been best to have that under just the original oral communications for items not on tonight's agenda, just for future reference. Okay, so on the will serve letter, back to that. Any questions? I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Next is the update on water resources by Mr. Ricker.
Yeah, and I'll have to say, I think I owe John a cup of coffee or lunch. I said, be here at 6:30. This will go fast. So sorry, John, but thank you for coming tonight and presenting.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, no, I can leave that, but down there.
John was invited just to, because each year he does this county-wide status report. So we thought, reach out to the board president and thought it'd be a good idea to kind of give the board and staff that entire viewpoint. So he's willing to come here tonight and present his findings.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And I did take a little bit of liberty. Ron said, I could just do the report, but it's always nice to have an opportunity to sort of dig into some of the data and summarize some things and look for some different perspectives. So you did get a copy in your packet of the report, the written report that went to the Board of Supervisors. That was essentially on their consent agenda, so there was no actual oral report to the Board of Supervisors. There we go. So tonight I'm going to summarize some of that, some of the key points from there, and cover a few additional issues as well. The report focuses on activities of what the County Water Resources Program does, but we also like to highlight for the Board of Supervisors, kind of highlights throughout the county of what's going on with water. So it does address some of the issues of the other water agencies, what they're doing to keep the board up to speed. I probably won't say a lot about what you guys are doing because you already know what you're doing, so we'll gloss over that. Just as one of the things we try to do is a lot of different mapping activities with our county geographic information system. A lot of these layers are on the public access GIS system, so folks can look at that. One of the things we did this past year was actually get at the service areas of the water districts. Before we had the water district boundaries, but we didn't have an inventory of what parcels were actually served. And for instance, whoops, go back. For instance, San Lorenzo Valley, you can see that sort of lighter blue area. That's their district boundary, but they don't serve nearly that large of an area. Their service area is the darker blue, and it's much smaller than what their actual district boundaries are. We have the City of Santa Cruz service area, your Soquel service area, and then way down in the lower part of the county, we actually have Pajaro. We have the Pajaro delivered water zone down in this lower part of the county where Pajaro actually delivers water to farmers. So, and then all these sort of bright pink areas, those are small water systems, systems that are less than 200 connections. So we're pretty much had, and then we're also, what I didn't put up there were all the wells, but we do have good information on most of the wells in the county. Our groundwater basins, you guys are probably pretty knowledgeable about those already. We do have 3 what we consider priority basins in the county. It's interesting, the Santa Margarita Basin up here on the left is a new basin as far as the state's concerned. It was not really mapped in Bulletin 118, but we went through the boundary modification process and got the state to recognize that basin and to recognize those boundaries. We think it's ultimately going to end up a medium priority basin and will be required to have management under SGMA, but right now it's essentially low priority. The state thought there was no groundwater use in that basin, which is interesting. You're all familiar with the Mid-County Basin there in yellow. We also did a boundary modification process there to consolidate those boundaries. That left a couple of other areas. The purple up in here is the Purisima Highlands. That's what's left of the old Santa Cruz Purisima. That's still a medium priority, and the state wants to see a GSA for that area. And then we also have down here in green the West Santa Cruz Terrace, which we've always argued with the state. We don't even, that's not even a basin. It's a bunch of collection of terrace deposits. But it is mapped as a medium priority, and if there's no GSA by June 30th, the state will do what they call intervention. I guess that's like reaccommodation, but they will come in and they will bill all the well owners for pumping groundwater from that basin and require them to install meters and report extraction. So I plan in May to go to the Board of Supervisors, and the county essentially will declare itself as the GSA for those 2 medium priority basins, and just hopefully when the state completes their reprioritization of what's left of those basins, they will drop to a low priority, but that won't happen until later this summer. And then of course we've got the Pajaro Basin in blue down there that's managed by our PV Water down to the south. Water use county-wide. This is just sort of a summary of the total water extraction. You can see the big chunk of it in blue there on the left. That's the Pajaro agriculture. And then a little bit of agriculture, North Coast and Mid-County, and then it progresses down. Santa Cruz City Water Department, Watsonville, Soquel Water District, San Lorenzo, Scotts Valley, and then I lumped together the medium-sized systems, Central, Big Basin, and Forest Lakes. They're 200 to 1,000 connections. And then we get down to the even smaller systems that are less than 200 connections, and then the individual users. Those would be non-agricultural users, the private wells, essentially. If you pull out the agricultural use, you get a sense of just what the the balance is among the different users.
John, have you done that same type of pie diagram for the basins?
For each basin? Yeah. I have not actually done a pie diagram. I have the numbers and could do those. It gets us into some of the issues of arguing not so much about extraction versus impact, what the return flows, and that's just pure extraction figures. And as soon as we put those up, people say, "Oh, well, but a lot of that water goes back into the ground." Right. So I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for the model to help us out to really dig into what's going on in the basins. And this is a chart that was in your report where we basically summarize the municipal water use for the northern and central parts of the county. It's all but Watsonville. And you can see that even though the, as the number of connections has increased over the years, this is starting in 1984 and going through 2016, the actual amount of water use has dropped off significantly. Here we've got the drought drop off for 2014, 15, and 16. We had very good conservation among the municipal users.
What's the blue flat line?
Oh, the blue flat line, that's an artifact I couldn't figure out how to get off the chart.
Oh,
It's interesting because it runs right along. Yeah, I don't know what that is, where that came from, and I really did try to get rid of it. This was an older chart, and as different versions of Excel get updated, sometimes it's hard to clean up old charts, so I apologize about that. And this is a little bit on the 2016 drought. Again, this was a report on 2016 that went to the board. And although we had close to normal rainfall, the state still, the federal government still classified our area as abnormally dry during 2016. And we did see continued low levels of stream base flow, particularly in the San Lorenzo watershed. Because the basins had not been recharged. They were not back up to natural levels. So the groundwater levels and stream base flow were still low. The big news, though, in 2016, well, and even earlier in the drought, was even during a drought period, we saw significant recovery of the basins that are being pumped because of the really significant water conservation efforts of your customers and the reduced pumping. We saw that in Mid-County. We also saw that up in the Scotts Valley area where they saw their groundwater levels actually coming up in 2016. This little chart that I've got at the bottom is groundwater levels up in the hills. This is my well going back to 2008 is the first year, and then of course the high one on the right, that's this year. That's got the measurement from a couple days ago. I monitor that well on about a weekly basis. But the red is the cumulative rainfall, and the blue is the groundwater level. You can see in 2014 the well really didn't come up at all during that winter. We had 20 inches or less than 20 inches of rain up there, and there was no recharge. The water levels continued to drop. We had some recovery in 2016, but still very low compared to previous years. And then, of course, 2017, we're breaking records. But that's what's going on up in the hills. That's essentially where the groundwater is really not that impacted by pumping. It's really responsive to the immediate rainfall recharge. In terms of what the county does for water management, we do a lot of different things. I mean, you guys mostly see me here talking about water supply issues or conservation or recharge, but we really do quite a bit. And this just lists a lot of the various things that we do. Some of what we do gets lumped under watershed management and fisheries resources. Of course, our well permitting, our oversight of the small water systems. We're an active member of the Water Conservation Coalition and get the word out at Earth Day and the county fair and work with folks that are outside of water agencies. We do quite a bit with stormwater management, but it's essentially a county-wide effort between the Public Works Department, the Planning Department, and Environmental Health. And we have a whole regular stormwater meeting and program and report that we do on that. As a part of that, we're very interested in the managed recharge efforts. Our policies do require that new development essentially infiltrate all their increased runoff, but we're really interested in going back and dealing with a lot of the existing development and trying to capture that stormwater where feasible, treat it and get it back into the ground. And we've had a couple of projects countywide to do that. Septic system permitting and management. We are permitting repairs or new systems, about 340 a year. We monitor beach water quality and do the posting as necessary. We work with the water agencies to do fish population monitoring, monitoring well levels in private wells, and stream flow throughout the county. We collect about 2,100 water quality samples a year and run those in our county lab. Working with some of the other departments, we work on climate mitigation and adaptation. The board today just had the annual report on the status of the county's climate action program. There's a lot of good things going on there. We work with Public Works on flood management and monitoring through the alert flood monitoring system. And then also just environmental health, planning, and Public Works all work on land use planning, permit review, and also consultation with our economic development folks. They're coming to me quite a bit to say, okay, how can we have economic development and address the water issues? So they're very sensitive to that. And the planners are asking me about groundwater management plans, and you know, every year when the county does its growth management report, they ask me to prepare a section on water supply constraints. So there's a fair amount of that goes on. And then we also are very active in coordination and collaboration with our other agencies, water supply agencies and cities throughout the county. This just gives you an indication of what our budget is. It's about $3.1 million a year to do most of what was on that list. That doesn't include everything in planning and Public Works. That funds about 15 positions. Half of them are in permit processing and code compliance. The other half are more the water quality sampling and the management type folks. And then we also spend about $380,000 in various projects. And our funding comes from a combination of fees for septic system owners under CSA 12, pay a fee annually. Zone 4 of the County Flood Control and Water Conservation District brings in 25% of our revenue. That's essentially on the tax bill. We do get a general fund contribution, which is very generous of the county board and the CAO. They're very stingy with their general fund monies, but we've been able to carve out a piece of that historically. Our permit fees and then also grants in the current year have been around 14%. And then we get contributions from other agencies as well. So just to sort of summarize what's in the report and what's going on throughout the county, these are some of the things we see in North County, the North Coast area, as well as the San Lorenzo Valley and the Santa Margarita Basin. The county is proceeding with a recycled water project up in Davenport and looking to update their intakes so that they can actually deliver water when it's raining. They're still having trouble with that. We did see the Lompico Water District merge with San Lorenzo in 2016. The CARS mapping is a project that was done with the City of Santa Cruz and San Lorenzo Valley Water District to essentially map the areas of limestone and marble that are in the North Coast areas and in the western part of the San Lorenzo Valley, that kind of geologic formation that transmits water really readily. So it's a very sensitive area that's important to protect in terms of water quality and recharge. It's very important for delivering cold water to the streams for the fish. We did have the Santa Margarita Basin designation. We're having a meeting tomorrow night to dissolve our advisory committee and move towards formation of a joint powers authority that looks very similar to the Mid-County JPA. We plagiarized that document very heavily. San Lorenzo Valley Water District has been doing an ongoing assessment, working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife to look at the impacts of their stream diversions. And we also just received a grant from the state to work with them to look at more ways to capture winter runoff from those diversions and use them less during the summer, use their groundwater resources more during the summer, and release more water into the streams during the summer. So that we're looking forward to working on that project with them. San Lorenzo 2025 is a sort of a public relations effort where we're working closely with funders at the state level to bring them down to really see what's going on in the San Lorenzo watershed and try to get significant grant funds to address a lot of the habitat issues in the watershed. And of course, there's ongoing water supply planning by both the City of Santa Cruz and Scotts Valley Water District within the San Lorenzo watershed and the Santa Margarita Basin. Mid-county efforts, you know a lot about those already. Let's see, what don't you know about? I think I already mentioned the county well database and the geographic information. We did require, starting in 2016, metering and reporting of water use by small water systems. By the end of 2017, those systems are all required to install individual meters on each connection for the systems that have more than 14 connections. So they are all moving towards metering and having a better handle on their water use. We've been working closely with UCSC, Andy Fisher, and the Resource Conservation District in terms of looking at managed aquifer recharge projects. Andy's just completed mapping that suitability essentially throughout the county, so we want to work with him to use that information to look for good locations for projects. We did complete the countywide stormwater resource management plan, which is essentially a prerequisite to receive any funding under Proposition 1 for recharge or stormwater projects. We also did get the grant that came to the county for critical groundwater basins that were contributing those funds primarily towards the MGA efforts and working with the private inland well owners on that. And the RCD received a grant to look at various ways to enhance stream flow in Soquel Creek. Again, working with diverters to either reduce their water use or to switch the timing or location of their water use so it has less impact on stream flow. South County efforts, there's still a lot going on down there, even though the list is short. PV Water is really the main lead agency. The county doesn't have as much activity down there since they've got the funding and the authority to do quite a bit down there. It's also in a separate region as far as integrated regional water management goes, but we have worked pretty closely with them in the past. We continue to work on stormwater projects, working with the RCD to capture ag runoff and do recharge projects with that. And also working a lot on Pinto Lake with the blue-green algae issues down there and trying to reduce sediment or reduce nutrient sources and control those nutrient sources. So overall, there's quite a bit of integration and collaboration that goes on. At this point, all of the agencies in the county are signed on to the Santa Cruz Integrated Regional Water Management MOA, and they're all contributing to maintain that program, contributing a total of about $80,000 or $90,000 a year to maintain that program independent of state funding. We continue to get grants as they come through. We had the drought assistance funding under Prop 84. We also had a Prop 84 stormwater grant that funded a number of recharge projects. We're about to see a chunk of money come through to address the needs of disadvantaged communities. And we expect to see more IRWM funding in 2018. But we really have embraced IRWM as more than just a funding source. I think it's something that this area has been good at for a number of years before the state ever even thought of IRWM. And we have embraced that, and I think everybody is really working very well together on looking at ways to collaborate. One of the big things we're going to be doing more of is bringing in the land use agencies and sort of working with them through the SIGMA program and make sure they're up to speed with everything that's going on. And then I just wanted to give a little perspective from the state. This is my last slide, and I was invited to come up and participate in a water summit last week that was sponsored by DWR and the Water Education Foundation. And the topic was building capacity for regional sustainability. There were about 200 people there, and probably a quarter of them were state staff. But there were a number of issues that came up. One of the big ones was, how do you resolve the potential conflicts between IRWM and SGMA, which takes priority? My answer to that was, well, we're doing both of them. We're using SGMA as a tool to help us implement IRWM, so we don't really see a conflict down here. But the state is concerned. They want regional. They want to work with the regions, but they're concerned about that there are too many regions. There's 48 IRWM regions, and I just looked at the website today. There are 277 GSAs, groundwater sustainability agencies, that have signed up on the state's website. That was not what the state had in mind. They had in mind working with a smaller number of regional organizations. So now they're saying, oh, well, now we want to go with a watershed approach. Well, what size watershed? Are we talking about the Monterey Bay watershed? Are we talking about one of our coastal watersheds? So there's still a lot of things that the state's trying to figure out on how to work with the regions. Regulatory alignment was a big one, really trying to get the regulations, the state regulations, in line with the objectives of what we're trying to do. Things like capturing stormwater and using it for recharge. Now they're telling us we need a waste discharge permit and a water right to do that, and it doesn't really make sense to have to do all that, or if you do have to do that, you need to streamline the process. So the state knows that they need to do more to help the regions, but they're still trying to figure out exactly what that is. The big takeaway for me was we look pretty good down here, and we've been doing a good job of working together. Mm-hmm. Every time I go to one of these statewide meetings, I'm very glad I'm not in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it for my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for that excellent report. One item that I do not see in here is the really excellent project that Scotts Valley Water has with building the tank to store recycled water to water Pasatiempo Golf Course. And I'd kind of like an update on that project and see if you foresee anything. You're shaking your head, but it's a county project. This is a county report, and I'd like to see something like that happen within the mid-county groundwater for SqCWD, for De La Viega. And I don't know what I'm saying wrong that's upsetting you.
What you're saying wrong is Scotts Valley Water District is not having anything to do with the Pasatiempo Golf Course.
Okay.
The city of Scotts Valley is sending secondary treated water past Pasatiempo. Pasatiempo is going to take it. They're going to treat it. They're going to use it on their fairways. It has nothing to do with the Scotts Valley Water District. That's
Okay. Oh. But
that's how it works.
But that project is moving forward, you know.
Okay.
I know that it is.
Okay, I've seen the
Been
tank.
approved,
I
yeah.
know it's a great project, and I'd like to see something like that happen in the mid-county area with SqCWD. And thanks for correcting. I was misunderstood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much, John. The next item is a status report on new water service application process and water demand offset program.
Great. So for members of the public that might not be familiar with the WDO program, it requires that all new service connections offset their projected water use by a factor of 2. And you saw earlier in the Twin Lakes Church variance request how we calculate those offset requirements and the factors that we use. Over the course of the program, which was initiated in 2003, applicants have met their offset by either paying a fee that equate to their water use or conducting their own conservation retrofits within the district. So most of those were toilet retrofits, but there were also shower heads and faucet aerators and lawn removal retrofits. During the periods in which the fees were paid to meet an applicant's offset requirement, the districts used the money to fund conservation projects within our service area that benefit our customers and save an equivalent amount of water. Thus, new development doesn't result in an increase in water demand. So in a nutshell, the program is a mitigation program which allows new development to occur without putting more pressure on our overdrafted groundwater basin. So what we're talking about tonight is primarily the recent changes that were made in late 2016 to the water demand offset program and how applicants apply for new service. Those changes were the result of some challenges that the program was facing, and we were able to seek input from the community and get some new ideas and come back in late 2016 with some ideas to how to revise the program. And so really those were adopted by the board on November, I think it was November 16th. And then we had a period of time in which we were implementing the new program, and the main component of that is really a toilet rebate program, and that's for replacing 1.6 gallon per flush or greater toilets with ultra high efficiency toilets that use 0.8 gallon per flush. Half of an applicant's water demand offset fee goes toward the toilet rebate program, and the other half of their fee goes towards some long-term conservation projects, such as stormwater recharge, which we're now kind of, once we've got this program up and running, we're starting to revisit those projects as sources of offset generating credit. Really, I want to focus on the changes to the program, the new program as we call it. The memo does also include a status on those projects that were caught in the middle when the program changed, which the board voted to allow them to just go through the old program as it was. So there's information on those projects in attachments 1, which shows the projects under the old program that have been completed, meaning they've gotten building permits and they've purchased their offset requirement and submitted their water use efficiency paperwork, and they have gotten a unconditional will serve from the board. So those are pretty much off the table now. And then attachment 2 shows the active conditional will serves under the old program. We have about 22 programs or 22 projects that still have an active will serve, and you know, if they all do go through and develop their projects, they'll need a maximum of 13.4 acre feet of water. So that's the kind of the wrap up of the old projects. For the new program changes, I think things have been going really well and have been successful overall. The new program in general does take a lot more staff time to administer, but I think that's a really added benefit for the customer, and it helps them understand our water problems and what they need to do to secure their water service and whatnot. So starting with the first big change, applicants must pay their water demand offset fee before they can even come to the board for initial consideration for a one-time will serve approval for most of the common projects that we see, so single-family homes and accessory dwelling units. And that's really helped because the way the old program ran was that applicants applied for a conditional will serve letter, which allowed them to go through the city or the county's planning and building process. And then once they did secure a building permit, they were able to come back and purchase offsets. And so the problem that was arising was that we didn't have sufficient offset credits for all of these projects to purchase. And so it's really helped by having the requirement be met up front and having at least half of the offsets actually in hand through the toilet rebate program, having that water savings already accomplished before a project can purchase their offsets, if that makes sense. I talked about the fees being split 50-50. The rebate program is for up to a $300 rebate for replacing the 1.6s with 0.8 gallon per flush toilets. So that basically covers the toilets that are qualifying under the program. They cost about $150 and another $150 of labor. So in most cases, it fully covers or almost fully covers the total cost for our customer. We started a wait list for applicants to purchase their required amount of offsets from the toilet rebate program. And again, that's that having the offsets in hand before a project can purchase and get approved. To be placed on the wait list, we're requiring that applicants meet with staff, so conservation and engineering staff, and that they sign a new water service agreement that lays out the terms of the program. And that's been, I think, really helpful to most people and to us in explaining how things work. And then we're also requiring that they record a memorandum of the agreement that they sign in the presence of a notary, which luckily we have a on-site notary, and we've been able to help people get that taken care of during their office visit in a lot of cases. That gets recorded against their property's deed down at the county, and so in the event that a property sells after they've gotten water service approval, the terms of that approval are made known to a new property owner, and we ask that they come and sign up with us within 30 days of the close of their escrow. So that's been going pretty well now that we've gotten the system up and working and figured out how to record the documents. Let's see, what else? Once they fulfill those requirements and pay the $300 application fee, we add their name to the wait list. And we could take a look at the wait list in a moment. The other nice feature that's working out well for some people under the toilet rebate is that they can have existing district customers apply for the rebate or do the retrofits in their own homes, apply for the rebate, and earmark that rebate's credit to go towards a specific development project. That's been really helpful for a small project that just came through last board meeting that you approved, where they only needed, they were just adding 200 square feet to a commercial building, and they were looking at, a wait list that had 14 people on it, and that would take a long time for them to get to the top, and they were able to just go and do their, I think it was 3 toilets that they needed to meet half of their offset requirement. So that's added some flexibility to the program. And then the last piece that we're hoping to bring to you next month to add even more flexibility is for applicants that want to find their own offset generating projects. So what those might look like, we'll be bringing that back again in a couple weeks. And I think that'll kind of help open some options up for people. So really, all the projects that applied for new service on or after August 16th are subject to the new program, and the toilet rebate was launched on December 1st of 2016. So I just want to show you how well the toilet rebate program's going. December 1st was our first month. Our start of the program. So, and it's real slow due to the holidays. And then things have ramped up, and we've been doing some bill messaging in February, and then in March we initiated a bill insert about the rebate program as part of our outreach, and so we did pretty well in March. It's up to 45 rebates, and things are still rolling in. So that's keeping the projects moving. We've moved, I think, 3 projects fully off the list, meaning they've accrued enough offsets to from the toilet rebate program to purchase. That's this one here. Let's see if I can shrink it a little bit. So this is the active wait list right now. The project in the number 1 position has met their offset requirement, and they are in their 21-day payment window, and I think they're going to pay this week, and so we'll be bringing that back for a will serve approval probably at the next meeting. This project here met the offset requirement, accrued enough rebates, purchased the offsets, and that one's pending due to a variance request for fronting the main, I believe, and an easement issue. And then we've moved these 2 projects off the list, the second one being that small commercial square footage increase. So things are moving, and it's looking promising in terms of the toilet rebate. So that's, I think, really all I wanted to say about the program. We think it's going pretty well.
Thank you for all the hard work.
And
That's
we're
quite a deal.
really focused now on looking at those stormwater recharge projects, and we brought back the sewer flushing machine. So we're excited to be putting more time into that process, because we think that's really going to be where we get a lot of bang for our buck.
I really appreciate looking into the stormwater recharge and also the Find Your Own program to give some flexibility. Any board questions or any members of the public wish to speak on this item? All right. And seeing none, I guess we should. Oh, there's somebody coming. There you go. Sorry.
So I'd like to say the insert caught my eye.
Great.
And so I think that the outreach is somewhat effective, and I could be a statistical the one. And it's encouraging to see that we're taking efforts to try to have this offset. The data that we saw of the number of connections going up, but the usage actually going down is very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, so the next item then is the community water plan.
Yes, there's a
Update.
copy in there in the, if we could pull it up there, Shelley. It's, this is just an update of our community water plan. It'll be distributed to the customers in the May, June in lieu of the district's quarterly newsletter, What's on Tap. So what you have looks something like this in your packet. What will actually be sent out is something that looks like this, folded in this shape. The idea is the old plan, community water plan, was big like this, and just to make it a little different, it has a new cover, a new shape and everything. And so we did meet with the Public Outreach Committee. As it was mentioned earlier, we received feedback. We do have a little bit more additional feedback coming back on page 308 regarding the water transfers. The city's gonna would like to make some suggestions to the language there, so we'll be incorporating that on top of what you provide. So
And
open to
what
any.
is there? Are we past the deadline for any other input, or like for other directors if they saw something? Or is now the time?
Yeah, now's a good time.
Okay. Anyway,
Fill in the
blanks.
blanks. There's a lot of blanks in
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot, yeah, well, you.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. There's, but we wanted to get it out to you in order to make the newsletter coming
Gotcha.
up. It's important.
Well, like on, one thing I
Carla
had on the
and Bruce
groundwater
after
replenishment, Pure Water Soquel,
Give me a page, please.
it's
307.
307, yeah.
The lead agency, we went back and forth and talking about that, but I still think we're one of the lead agencies on that. But we are working together with the county and the city of Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't know what happened there. Yeah,
That's a good
that's
point. I
mistake.
didn't notice that.
Excellent.
But on the other hand, I think that the edits on and clarifying that lead agency, that it's great if on page 308 with the water transfers, if they could add some input on that, since Santa Cruz City, since they are the lead agency on that, would help all of us probably to know
Yeah.
about what's going on.
And Bruce, you had some comments?
Yes. I don't know what pages it is because the version I got didn't have any page numbers and I couldn't change it after. But it's, the first one is a page that starts with the title Maximizing Conservation.
That's 304.
304, okay.
Thank you.
And down at the very bottom, the green part starts off, the Water Demand Offset Program, ... And that kind of assumes people even know what it is. So I would start this off and say, water demand offset is a program. And I don't think people really would grok what a zero water footprint is. So I would say something like, water demand offset is a program that ensures that new development offsets their full amount and doesn't make the problem worse. Something like that.
Good suggestion.
Sometimes people use water neutral. I don't know if that's...
That might be okay.
New development is water neutral. Does that sound like?
I'm not sure they get it. I mean, I
Maybe more
Like-
explanation.
I would
Doesn't
just say
make the problem
they
worse.
don't make the problem worse. Yes.
That's
Okay.
good.
That's very clear.
And then
The
you have
water
one with
shortage
poppies
problem
on the
worse.
bottom.
Yep, poppies on the bottom. It says groundwater replenishment, pure water Soquel.
Okay.
That's page 307.
Got it.
Okay. The second paragraph has a typo in the second line.
Okay.
Operates a groundwater replenishment project which has produced.
Great.
Has produced.
Good pickup.
And then the lead agency is not City of Santa Cruz.
Right. I got
Okay,
that.
so-
Thank you.
On the next page, water transfers. I wouldn't, under status, I would not say the 5-year pilot project would offset, because that's only in good years. That
Could.
Yes, could.
Okay. Good.
Uh-huh. Depends on the
In fact,
rain.
you might even say,
Right.
in good years, it could.
Yeah. It's a weather
Wet years.
maximum
Yes.
offset. Okay.
Right. Okay, the next page under desalinization, I would say that Deepwater Desal, rather than being a private entity, I would call it a corporation or something like that.
Is that
not-
corporation rather than entity?
I'm not sure what an entity is. I mean,
Okay. I'll have
I'm
to
an
look
entity,
and see.
you're
Maybe
an
an
entity.
LLC. So let me. We got it.
Sounds better. Also, I'm not quite sure why we keep repeating "at a glance" with the name of it, and even though often the title is already up above. But so.
Yeah. I mean, it's meant to summarize it in a glance. It could just be
Well, the whole thing, I mean,
Maybe-
as a glance.
if you look at those, it's mainly all of it's the glance, so, I don't know. I found it didn't lend anything of value to
Okay.
me.
Okay.
On the next page, participate, evaluate, be informed. You have the little symbols for social media. I'm not sure everyone, particularly old codgers like me, necessarily understand what these little symbols are.
It's true.
The bottom one, I don't know.
Good. We'll spell it
Probably
out.
Instagram. I think it's probably Instagram. But
Facebook,
Oh.
Twitter, and Instagram. We got it.
yeah, I
Because
think
I'm an old
Again,
fart.
Make it be generally understandable.
Okay.
just write the name of it
Yeah, we will.
ahead of the symbol.
Yes.
Okay.
You can make the argument, though, if you don't know the symbol, you're not using it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, but maybe people would want to just
Yeah.
to follow this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Get them infected.
All right.
That's
great
all I
input.
have.
Thank
Those
you.
are good comments.
Okay.
So just a spin comment
Mm-hmm.
on the groundwater transfers.
Yep.
What page is that?
Groundwater replenishment,
No,
Transfers.
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 Sorry, not the groundwater transfers,
Mhm.
the transfers.
groundwater management.
Water transfers, page 308.
308.
308. What's my small amount and what's your small amount might be different. So I suggest just would offset 20% of the district's water shortage.
Or
Okay.
could,
Or
Yeah,
could,
or might,
could
Right.
offset.
or maximum
20%.
of.
Right.
Okay, good.
Great, good feedback. Anyone else? Okay, we've given direction. That should be that. There's a written communication, and then this would be time for adjournment to a closed session. Thank you, everyone, for coming
Thank you.
and for your input.
Good night, and what's a good day? Edward Morrow.
Stand
And then
Can't.
I used to watch what was Huntley and Brinks? I forget. Did I remember?
I forget.